So hello everybody. Thank you all to coming for coming in our seminar. So today we have a seminar about the structure of Slovenian about the structure of scientific collaboration among the Slovenian scientists. So Marjan, you are welcome, and you can start.
Thank you. Before I start presenting myself. I have to mention also my co-authors, which are Luka Kroneger, Aleš Žiberna, Franz Mali, and Anushka Čerligoy. And for me, I have a special slide. This is me. As you can see, I like hiking, and this is me at Velika Planina. So if you will get bored during my presentation, I am inviting you to visit their web page, and maybe you can book one of these lowly houses here for hopefully summer vacations. In free time, I'm working at the Faculty of Social Sciences on several topics. For example, me and Nusha and some other co-authors recently published a paper on social support networks among elderly people during the coronavirus pandemic in Slovenia, and we made also a nice video. I think that Nusha presented this work a couple of weeks ago in this seminar. Then I'm collaborating in some projects about online counseling services for young and older people. Right now I'm dealing with how to what is the quality of health-related information in these services, especially those related to cancer. And for my PhD, I was studying how different local network mechanisms affect different global network structures that were described by different types of block models. And also I'm studying scientific collaboration, and this is the topic that I will talk about today. Well, if you are interested in more about me, then you can visit my web page, outlier.si, or the web page of our faculty. Well, you might agree that collaboration is an essential part of scientific work, and it can have several, it can be good for us because it helps to exchange and develop ideas, to share working tools and materials. This is especially important also in natural sciences, and scientific collaboration also increase the visibility and quality of scientific output. So there is a general consensus that scientific collaboration should be encouraged. And to this aim, several initiatives and policies are established. And if you want to evaluate these policies and initiatives and develop successful policies and initiatives, we have to understand the structure and the underlying mechanisms of scientific collaboration. And in this presentation, I will try to make a step towards better understanding of this scientific collaboration. And my presentation will consist of two parts. In the first part, I will talk about co-authorship structures and their stability in time. And in the second part of my presentation, I will talk about the structure of scientific collaboration on two levels actually. One level will be a collaboration between researchers, and the other will be among research organizations. So let me start with the first part, which will be a little bit longer. So As I said, the aim is to describe the global network structure of the Slovenian scientific authorship networks, and we will compare this structure by different scientific disciplines, and then we try to reveal the stability of the obtained global network structure between two time periods, and we will use some visualizations, and we will also compute some indices, values of some indices. You will see later. I usually start my presentations with the methodology section, but today I will start it with data. In this first part of my presentation, we will analyze the data for two time periods. The first time period started in 1991 and ended in 2000. In this time period, the Slovenia became independent. On the photo you can see here is Milan Kučan and his famous speech. He said that today we can dream, but tomorrow is a new day. And yeah, in this time period, Slovenia had to start developing and implementing its own social policies, while in the second time period, which is between 2001 and 2010, Slovenia joined to the European Union and adopts the European Union standards. And by the end of this time period, Slovenia already at least partially integrated its national science system into the European Union one. We will make our analysis on the level of scientific disciplines, which are defined by the Slovenian Research Agency. I will just quickly show you these scientific disciplines. This is the web page of our Slovenian Research Agency. You can see a classification here. We have these scientific fields, 7 of them. So natural sciences and mathematics is the first one. And each scientific field have several scientific disciplines and sub-disciplines. We will analyze scientific disciplines in this part of the presentation, so mathematics, physics, biology, and so on. And we have like 72 scientific disciplines defined by this classification scheme. So let me continue. So the data are only for researchers that have this ANR-Lab ID, and these are mostly the researchers from Slovenia, but also some others. The data were collected from two services. The first is called COBIS, and it contains the data about all published bibliographic units, and the second one is called SICRIS, that contain the data about researchers and research projects. You can use this database or access this database like services online. For example, the SICRIS, the COBIS is very often used to like browse for different books. Everything published by those who have this ANR research ID is in here. I type in my data, my name and surname, and you can see that, yeah, I published quite a lot. But for example, if I click here, I have the title, authors, type of material, when it's published, and so on. And on the other hand, we have this SICRIS. If I type in my name and surname, you will find here my email. You can write me if you want. However, I wanted to highlight that there is quite a lot of information about me and other researchers. For example, where I work, and I can browse for my previous and current research projects. And also here you can see how many likes, I mean citations I have. And if you click here for bibliography, you will see that this SIGRIS and COBIS database are connected, and for each researchers, including me, I can get full personal bibliography. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds or maybe 1 minute. It is faster usually. Here it is. I want to show you the different bibliographic units are here organized by their types. For example, original scientific article, professional article, and so on. I want to show you this. For example, this is my first research done in high school. I was studying the influence of anti-law smoking on catering and tourism in Celje and Slovenske Konjice. These are two small cities in Slovenia. It was published in 2008. I was 18 years old. I am showing you this because so you will see that it's really complete bibliography of researchers. And here you can see that, for example, I'm collaborating scientifically, and one of collaboration was with Dawn Delay, but she unfortunately doesn't have this SIGRIS ID. This is my SIGRIS ID. Because she is not registered researcher in Slovenia. She's from United States, and this was only one-time collaboration. And therefore, she and other similar researchers will not be included in our analysis. So this was a little something about our databases. Here is the plot visualizing which different types of scientific units we considered. We considered all bibliographic units that are classified as scientific according to the ANR-Lab. These are published scientific conference, contribution, original scientific article, part in scientific monograph, review scientific article, and others. You can see here the number of units from the first and for the second time period. You can see that the number of published units dramatically increased in the second time period. And these three that I mentioned are the most common ones. And here you can see the number of researchers that are included in our analysis. I told you that the analyses are done for each on the level of scientific disciplines. So here is a complete list of all scientific disciplines and number of researchers in the first and in the second time period for each scientific discipline. I have to mention that we considered only those researchers that published at least one scientific bibliographic unit within this defined time period. So in general, you can see that the number of researchers increased in the second time period, but you can also see that there are quite a lot of differences in the size of scientific disciplines, or at least you can see that, for example, sport and some others are very small with very low number of researchers, and this is reflected also in the global structures of co-authorship networks. In some of them, there is no links at all or only a few. So we decided to not consider these orange colored scientific disciplines in our study because they were just too small or not developed in that sense. Yeah, 43 is the total number of scientific disciplines that we analyzed. And I've already mentioned the term co-authorship network. Now I will explain what it is. In co-authorship networks, we have nodes which are authors, for example, and the links between the nodes are present if two nodes, authors, researchers published a common scientific bibliographic unit. For example, I have two research papers. One, the stability of co-authorship structures, was written by me, Nusha, and Luca. And because we wrote a scientific paper together, we are all linked to each other. On the other hand, we have another scientific paper, which was written by also Luca, Mari, Matei, Montius, and Amador. And they are all linked to each other because they co-authored this scientific paper. So this is a complete, this is a co-authorship network based on these two research papers. You can also see that me and Amador, we are not linked because we don't have any common or joint scientific bibliographic unit published together. But Luca is a quite interesting person in this regard because he is in the middle and he's somehow connecting me and Nusha with the others. And Luca is called a bridging node because of this, because he bridges two groups of researchers, and Luca is very important. Yeah, we apply this reconstruct co-authorship networks for each scientific disciplines, and these networks are, of course, bigger with many nodes and more complex. And to obtain the structure of these co-authorship networks, we need something more advanced. We cannot just analyze them visually. And to this aim, we used block modeling. Block modeling is approach for reducing a large, potentially incoherent networks to smaller, comprehensible, and interpretable structures. And the result of block modeling is also a block model and a partition. But a block model is a network where the nodes are clusters, often called positions of equivalent nodes from the studied network. Here on the right-hand side, you can see an example of empirical network visualized in a graph form. You can see these nodes are now, this is just a toy example, and these nodes can be, for example, researchers. And you can see that these blue-colored nodes have a very similar structure of links. They are not linked to each other, but they are usually linked to those red-colored nodes, and because of them, they can be shrinked into one node in a block model, and this is a block model. And also these red-colored nodes or researchers have very similar structure of links to each other. You can see that they are very well linked to each other, and they are linked to these blue-colored nodes, and therefore these red-colored nodes can be shrinked into one node, and in such a way, yeah, we obtain the block model. Now, as I said, block model is a network, so we have now two nodes. These nodes are essentially clusters of nodes from the initial empirical network, and this network have also links between these nodes which visualize the relationship between the groups from the empirical network. You can see that those blue-colored nodes are these red-colored nodes are generally symmetrically linked, and because of this there is this symmetrical link between this blue and red cluster of nodes. And here is a loop which visualizes that the fact that these red colored nodes are well linked to each other. And here we don't have loop because these blue colored nodes are not linked to each other. Now I said that block model is a network where the nodes are clusters of equivalent nodes from the studied network. Well, there are several definitions of equivalent equivalences. I will refer in this presentation to the structure of equivalence. When the structural equivalences use the two nodes are equivalent if they have identical ties to and from the other nodes. We have also this term block in block modeling, which refers to a submatrix showing the links between two clusters. And when we use structural equivalence, null and complete blocks are possible. I will show you the same network, but here you can see it in matrix form. In rows, we have different nodes, so researchers, for example, and in columns as well. And if there is a dot here in this matrix, then this means that two researchers are linked. And this is an empirical block model, empirical network drawn in line with the block modeling solution. This means that we just reordered rows and columns in such a way that those from the same cluster are placed together, and different clusters, we have two clusters here, are separated with these blue lines. And I mentioned these complete and null blocks. Well, this can be seen here. This is now block model written in a matrix form. You can see that we have only two rows and two columns, one for each cluster or group. And you can see that here we have complete blocks. Ideally, in complete blocks, we have all possible links, and in null blocks, there is no any link. And if you compare this block model with this empirical network drawn in line with the block modeling solution, you can see that we have some non-links in complete blocks here, which is kind of error. And I mean, yeah, let us say error. And we call these errors inconsistencies. There are several approaches to block modeling, and one of them is generalized block modeling. And when the algorithm for generalized block modeling is used, the nodes are randomly relocated from one cluster into another cluster in such a way that the value of a criterion function is minimized. This is procedure how to get a block model or estimate a block model from an empirical network. Now, when using block modeling, we can either we have to specify the number of clusters and the allowed block types. This approach is more explanatory, and it is used when we don't have a clear idea about the existing global network structure. But often we have some prior knowledge of the global network structure, and then we also pre-specified also the relationships between groups. And this is called pre-specified block modeling or pre-specified model. And this is usually used when we have some prior knowledge about the global network structure. And we, in our case of block modeling co-authorship networks, we had some prior knowledge about the global network structure, and this knowledge was obtained by or delivered by Luca, already mentioned Luca Kronegar in 2011. And this global network structure, a block model type, is called a multi-core on the example of some carefully selected Slovenian scientific disciplines that this is the global network structure that we would expect in such type of networks. I wrote these names in three boxes and provided a very short description of each of them. But I will refer to them on the empirical example on the Kotoship block model of sociology. So we will not go through them right now. Well, we pre-specified this global network structure, multi-core, semi-periphery, and we used Pike software to apply block modeling on co-authorship networks for each scientific discipline and each time period. Now, me and Nusha, we figured out that Pike had some difficulties with detecting very small structural equivalent clusters, for example, as this two here, and therefore we make a little hack. We use this procedure that is written here. What we did was to find the components that are also cliques. These are these red colored nodes, and then we find the periphery. These are these blue colored nodes. These are not linked to each other. And then we extract this part of the network, and then we run block modeling only on this part of the network, the rest of the network, and then we merge the extracted part of the network with the solution obtained by the block modeling procedure. And this is an example of a block modeling solution for the sociology co-authorship network drawn in line with the block modeling solution. We have here two matrices, one for the first time period and one for the second time period. In rows, we have researchers, and in columns as well. And these these black dots visualize co-authorships between two researchers. You can see here very small structurally equivalent units together. These are pairs of researchers that co-authored something together, but not with the rest of the others. So these blue colored nodes are those, or clusters are those that were extracted by hand here, and also the same was done for this part of the network, which is called periphery. And yeah, I will go back to the periphery in a couple of seconds. I will continue with this. You can see here that we have so these structural equivalent small clusters of researchers, and then we have some other clusters of researchers which are called cores. So this is this multi-core part. You can see that researchers in this part of the network collaborate with each other quite systematically. From time to time, they collaborate with the researchers from other cores and from other researchers from the so-called semi-periphery. You can also see here that some bridging cores exist, which are connecting to other cores of researchers by co-authorships. Here we have this so-called semi-periphery. You can see that researchers in this part of the network block model does not collaborate in such a systematic way as those in the cores. And then we have this periphery. These are the researchers that published something, but they publish it as a solo authors, or with someone from different scientific disciplines, or someone that is someone from abroad, or someone else that doesn't have this SIGRIS as a researcher ID. We have a very similar structure in the second time period, but as you can see, the share of researchers from periphery decreased in the second time point. But it is the case also for other scientific disciplines. Let us take a look at some statistics. Here we have the distribution for the average course size for the first and for the second time period. Separate for those scientific disciplines from natural and technical sciences in green, and those for scientific disciplines from social sciences and humanities. You can see that in general, the average course size is a little bit lower in the social sciences and humanities. This is maybe because those working in natural and technical sciences are forced to collaborate also because of sharing these big machines and so on. You can also see that in both groups of scientific disciplines, the average course size increased in the second time period. Now, if we take a look at average share of periphery, this is what I have shown here on the example of sociology. You can see that the average share of periphery is much slower in natural and technical sciences as in social sciences and humanities, but you can see that it remains quite similar or almost the same in the second time period as well, while this is not the case in social sciences and humanities, where the average share of the periphery decreased quite dramatically from the first into the second time period. But our initial research question is how stable are the obtained cores, not just how large are they. So one of the approaches to study the stability of obtained cores is by using some visualizations. On the slide, you can see one such visualization. So if you focus on this left part here, you can see these visualizations in a matrix form, and we transform these two matrices into this next visualization, which also consists of two parts. The rectangles on the upper part are for the first time period, and those on the bottom are for the second time period. Here we have black colored rectangles, and these are visualizing the cores. And then we have this orange, which is for the semi-periphery, red for the periphery. And then we have so-called incomers, which are the research which were not present in the first time period, but they appear in the second time period. So if you wanted to draw such visualizations, we had to add them to the visualize them by this rectangle in the first time period. And similarly, we have for the second time period, but instead of incomers, we have outgoings here. These are those researchers that didn't publish anything in the second time period, but they published something in the first time period. So these are maybe those that retired or others. Now we are, these lines between the rectangles from the second and between the first and the second time period visualize the stability of cores. You can see that some cores in the example of sociology merge from the first into the second time period while some cores like split it in several courses and so on. Since we are interested in the stability of course, but not also this part so much, so semi-periphery, periphery, and incomers and outgoers, we modified or simplified this visualization to the one on the right-hand side. We just removed those that were not in the course in at least one time period, and those that were not present in the first time period in course but were in course in the second time period are now called into course researchers, and those that leave the course from the first into the second time period are called out of course researchers. All the other is the same. You can see, as I said, that some course merge, some splits, but also some new courses emerged in the second time period, and some completely disappeared from the first into the second time period. We made the same visualizations for all scientific disciplines. You can see them here. I will show you an example of biochemistry. This is a very interesting example because you can see there is so much instability in this course. Almost all course from the first time period disappear in the second time period, and almost all course in the second time period didn't exist in the first time period. Meanwhile, some relatively large course from the first time period, researchers from this course remains in course also in the second time period. And then I have another example, which is microbiology and immunology. It is completely different picture. You can see that most of this course of researchers remain stable also in the second time period. Well, and this is for all scientific disciplines. But it would be very useful if we would have a numerical measure for measuring the stability of course, so we could make some statistical tests, linear regressions, and so on. But before that, we should somehow define the desired characteristics of such a measure, and we did this. We said that the measure should take values between 0 and 1, where higher value should indicate a higher level of stability, and lower value should indicate slower level of stability. And then splitting, of course, should lower the value of the measure, so indicates lower value of level of stability. Merging, of course, should also lower the value of the measure, and also into course and out of course should indicate slower level of stability. Of course, we could define this measure differently, and we also did that. We also proposed some other measures that are defined differently. For example, that only splitting, of course, lower the value of the measure, but not also merging, of course. But today I will not go into that. But you're welcome to take a look at our paper. I will provide you with the title at the end. So to calculate these values for each scientific discipline, we need I have to introduce some notations. So let us say that we have two sets of researchers, for example S and T, with a non-empty intercept, which means that some researchers are present in both sets. So this can be the researchers from the first and the second time period. And then we have two partitions, for example, U obtained on the first set of researchers and V obtained on the second set of researchers. And these partitions can be obtained by block modeling. Then by this, based on these two partitions, we can make a contingency table, but because these two sets of researchers are not completely the same, we have to add additional row and column into this contingency table for the into-course researchers and for out-of-course researchers. And based on this contingency table, we can calculate the value of the modified RAND index. Now, the modified RAND index is defined as the ratio between the number of all possible pairs of researchers placed in the same or in different clusters in both partitions U and V, calculated on the contingency table without these into-course and out-of-course researchers, and the number of all possible pairs of researchers from the contingency table with these into-course and out-of-course researchers. This is the formula on the slide here, but don't bother with that. I will show you an example instead. But before showing you an example, I will just want to note that even though the value, the measure is defined on the interval between 0 and 1, you will get a relatively high value in the case of two random and independent partitions. And in such case, we would like to have something close to 0, and to this aim, we calculated some adjustments and adjust this MRI value by considering the these adjustments, and this adjusted MRI is then called MARI, like MARI, or modified adjusted RAND index. Here is an example, just a toy example. You can see that indeed newcomers, into-course researchers and out-of-course researchers lower the value of the measure, so the value of the MARI is much lower than 1. Otherwise, these U prime and V prime partitions are the same. Then in the case of merging, the value of MARI is even lower. You can see that here the first and the second clusters or course merged into one in the second time period. We have still here into course and out of course researchers. This is why the MARI is much lower as here. And in the case of splitting, of course, we have the same value of MARI, because merging and splitting have the same influence of this value. And then in the case of two random and independent partitions, the value of MARI is very, very close to 0. And the expected value of MARI is also 0. Regardless of the number of nodes or units and number of clusters. We calculated these MARI values for all scientific disciplines, and then we wanted to explain the variability of this MARI, which is now treated as a dependent variable among different scientific disciplines. These are units now. And to this aim, we used the linear regression. We considered many controlling variables, for example, number of researchers in the first time period, growth of the number of researchers, growth of density, average course size, percentage of course, percentage of presence of a bridging core, percentage of out-of-course researchers. This was considered only in the model 2. I will tell you why. And then we have included different scientific fields, so to which scientific field a given discipline belongs. And we are actually primarily interested whether there are some differences between scientific disciplines. And if we take the results from model 1, you can see that average core size and growth of density are associated with higher level of stability of cores, but the differences between different scientific disciplines, or at least humanities and other scientific, no disciplines, but fields, are not statistically significant. But if we include percentage of out of course as a controlling variable, then we can observe some statistically significant differences in the stability between the humanities and others scientific fields. But including percentage out of course researchers into the model would means that these out-of-course researchers does not indicate lower stability, of course. So our MARI is now essentially defined in such a way that only splitting, of course, lower the value of the measure. And if we define MARI or control the value, for the percentage of out-of-course researchers, then we obtain some differences, and in general we can conclude that the average stability is the lowest in the field of humanities and the highest in the field of engineering and technologies and medical sciences. So the first part of my presentation is almost over. Just 3 points to remember. The general conclusion would be that the cores are relatively unstable in time. Then the structure of scientific collaboration can be described as the multi-core semi-periphery in all scientific disciplines, in all time periods, in both time periods in Slovenia, at least for well-developed scientific disciplines. There is a general tendency towards scientific collaborations, and there are differences in the stability of course between scientific fields if the stability is not defined by out-of-course researchers. Now I see that I have to speed up a little bit. I will go to the second part of my presentation, which is the two-level structure of scientific collaboration. Now it is in the first part we considered only the links on the level of researchers, but you might agree that considering different social levels is important, because collaboration of different social levels are interdependent, and because of this we aim now to simultaneously study the structure of scientific collaboration in the field of social sciences on two levels. The first is organizational level, and the second level is individual level. I have to highlight this field of social sciences. We are no longer on the level of scientific disciplines, but we are considering the whole scientific field and only social sciences now. We have to define the links in these scientific collaboration networks. Now, on organizational level, the scientific collaboration between two organizations is defined by a joint research project, while on individual level, scientific collaboration is defined by co-authoring a research paper. Not a book, but only a research paper. We will consider only one time period from 2005 to 2015, because we got some new data, and so we extended our time period. I already mentioned this. Here you can see how many researchers we included, almost 800 in total. Only those from the field of social sciences, of course. And these researchers are from various scientific disciplines, mainly economics, educational studies, and so on. Sociology is on the 4th place. Here are those bibliographic types of bibliographic units that were considered in this part of my presentation. These are original scientific article, which is the most common one, review article, and short scientific article. So only papers. And 3,000, more than 3,000 research papers were published in this time period. Also, you can get data from CICRIS to which scientific field a given research organization belongs. So we considered only those research organizations at which our researchers were employed. Not all research organizations are from this field of social sciences, but most are. So other social sciences, economics, general social sciences, and then we have some scientific fields, engineering, sciences and technologies, natural and biotechnical science. Some social scientists also work in medical sciences, in research organizations of which primary research is in medical sciences and some in humanities. We considered more than 3,000 research projects that started or ended in this time period between 2006 and 2015. You can see that almost half of the research projects are European or international, financed by, fully or partially financed by the European Union or other international institutions. Then we have target research projects, also basic, quite a large share of projects are basic, and then we have applied and postdoctoral research projects. Now, based on this data, we can define a multi-level network. This is very similar as co-authorship networks, but a multi-level network obviously consists of multi-levels, several levels. We have a level of individuals. These are now researchers linked if they co-authored a paper. And then we have organizations which are linked if they jointly apply for the research project. And then we also have this two-mode network. These are which contains also links between these individual researchers and organizations. So a given researcher is linked to a given organization if this researcher works at this organization. And for obtaining a global network structure of such multi-level network, we need a special approach to block modeling. There are several of them. We use the k-means-based block modeling approach for linked network, proposed by Aleš Žiberna, who is also co-author of this presentation. I will not go into these details. I will just make some advertisement and say that this approach is faster than generalized block modeling for multi-level networks approach, and it is implemented in KM block R package, which is available at RForge. The logic is very simple, is very similar as in the single level block modeling, but here we block model separately the different levels, but also considering the constraints that are implied by this links that connect different levels. So on this original network, we can obtain such a block model. And I will go to the results. In our in this approach, you have also to specify the number of clusters, which can be quite not so easy, because you have to do this for each level. So for the level of organizations and for the level of individuals. And we did this based on the value of a criterion function. To remind you, higher value of a criterion function reflects lower fit of a block model to the empirical network. And we've chosen three solutions. The first with a low number of clusters, intermediate number of clusters, and high number of clusters. And today we will focus on this intermediate number of clusters. We select 15 clusters of researchers and 6 clusters of organizations. This is a visualization of the result. So I will show you also this network in a matrix form. You're familiar with this because I have shown you in the previous, in the first part of my presentation. But now we have here this like co-authorship network, and here we have a part that connects researchers with institutions, and we have this part so another level of network, which is a network of organizations or institutions. Because this is quite large, I will just focus on this graph visualization on how to read it. You can see that some nodes are colored in blue. These are the researchers, and the size of this these nodes, which are groups of researchers, is proportional to the number of researchers in this group or cluster. And then we have these red colored nodes. These are groups or clusters or of organizations. The sizes are proportional to the number of researchers from organizations belonging to a given cluster. And you can see that these nodes are linked. So the sizes of these edges and color intensities are proportional to the share of individuals from a given cluster of individuals who affiliate with a given clusters of researchers. So if there is a lot of researchers from this group of organizations, then this width will be bigger. And similarly for others. If we take a look from the distance, you can see that the global network structure of researchers consists of many cohesive, more or less internally linked groups of researchers. You can see that these groups of researchers have these nodes have loops which visualize the fact that they are internally very linked to each other. But the researchers from different clusters are not quite well linked to each other. I forgot to tell you that these colors in these nodes are actually pie charts, and they are visualizing the distribution of the scientific fields and disciplines. So the second observation would be that the cluster of organizations are generally well linked to each other. You can see that these links are between these organizations are quite well visible, and they are also well linked within the clusters. So you can see this by these loops. However, probably the most important is that scientific collaboration between organizations is generally not manifested in co-authored publications between researchers from these organizations. You can see that, for example, these and these groups of organizations are very well linked to each other, but the researchers that belongs to these organizations are not so much linked to each other as we would expect. Okay, and we can take a local view at this global network, at this block model. I will just go very quickly through this, the most interesting parts. For example, this is the Faculty of Social Sciences. In this cluster contains only the Faculty of Social Sciences. It is quite large, quite a lot of researchers work here, and you can see that those that work at the Faculty of Social Sciences, they do not collaborate so much with the others in the network. However, they collaborate with each other at least. This part of the network is the social sciences and humanities. Actually, all other central organizations from the field of social sciences in Slovenia, except the School of Economics and Faculty of Social Sciences, are here. And the researchers and two groups of researchers that are not quite well linked to each other are associated with this group of organizations. Here we have another cluster of organizations which consists of only one organization, and this is School of Economics and Business. Well, there are groups of researchers in this at this school that collaborate with each other quite well, but researchers from different groups or clusters do not collaborate to each other so much. And there is also a smaller group of researchers who collaborate, who are employed at scientific organizations from different clusters. And this part of the block model is mostly about natural and technical and medicine sciences. Especially interesting is this part of researchers because it forms quite a core periphery structure. And then we have this part of the network of the block model, which is quite highly determined by the organizations and researchers from the coastal region of Slovenia. And then we have this part with different faculties and institutes that are not so much embedded into the network, and these are just named others. And another 3 points to remember: formal initiatives for scientific collaboration between researchers from different organizations might not be reflected in scientific collaborations on individual level. We could not confirm that. And as you have seen, there is quite a high level of inter-organizational scientific collaboration, but organizational scientific collaboration is unfortunately often not manifested in co-authored scientific papers. And obviously the clusters of researchers are highly determined by their organizational affiliations. And this is the final slide that I promised to you. These are our great papers. I put just the titles of the papers. If you type this title and Marjan Cugmas, you will find them. These are the papers on which my presentation was based. And if you are interested in any detail, that you can take a look or at these papers or just write me an email, and I will be glad to explain you something further. So that would be all. I think I took quite a lot of time, but I will be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Marjan, thank you very much for such an interesting presentation and impressive research. We can start asking the questions. And I have one question about the nature of scientific collaboration overall. So we see that we see that the one of the feature that organizations are research organizations are connected, have some strong connection, then the researchers has a weak connection among each other. So maybe the affiliations and the organization of these researchers, I mean that the connection of these affiliations probably is one of the nature of the whole scientific collaboration. Maybe that is how it works in science, or not.
Yeah. I'm not completely sure if I understand your comment. You can you try to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it is about your third point of the second part of your presentation,
Yeah.
where we see the picture with the organizations which are affiliations of the researchers, that those organizations are highly connected with each other. And
Yeah.
here we see that the researchers are weakly connected with each other. So.
Yeah.
So this is like the feature of the scientific collaboration in your case, or overall in the whole science.
Yeah, you mean also in other scientific fields?
In other scientific fields, and yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
It could be.
Yeah, but we should run some analysis also. That would be, yeah, also very interesting to examine. But yes, I think that similar situation would appear also in other scientific fields. Maybe Nusha could tell something about this, because she have more experience with Slovenian science, but I think that similar picture will be also for other scientific disciplines, fields. Yeah.
Well, you know, so he's applying block modeling. Block modeling means that you are looking for the groups of individuals that are working strongly, collaborating strongly with each other. And the procedure found these groups, because you can see that the loops inside the group are quite strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this was the purpose of block modeling, to find the clusters that of researchers that write papers together, right?
Yeah.
So if there would be a link between different clusters of researchers, that would mean that that group is a bridging group or something like that.
Yeah, we would expect that, because if you take a look here, we have this School of Economics and Business and Faculty of Social Sciences. You can see that these faculties collaborate with each other quite well. But on the other hand, because of this, we would expect also that researchers would publish many scientific papers together. Researchers from different faculties or groups of organizations. So as Nusha said, we would expect this bridging or off diagonal complete blocks as well. And it also depends on how many clusters we choose, how precise we look at this global network structure. This is why in our paper we presented all three solutions. So with low number of clusters, intermediate, and high number of clusters. I think that in the case of high number of clusters, we have also cases where different groups of researchers from different clusters or groups of institutions are well linked. But I don't remember where on this figure I could find them.
Thank you. But can you say why this feature happened? Like why some organizations are strongly connected with each other, but the researchers in these organizations are not? Yeah,
I mean, in our case, I think that it would be more interesting to take a look at the researchers that are from different clusters that are linked to each other, because in our case, majority of clusters of researchers are not linked. Yeah. What you are asking could be a very interesting research question for further analysis. Actually, one of the purposes of this analysis, which was more exploratory, was to generate some new ideas for future directions of research. And one of them could also be completely qualitative, and yeah, to some extent we took a look at these clusters and described them very precisely, but I would not make any conclusions about general reasons.
Maybe, Marjan, I can help you a little bit. It really depends what kind of relation you are taking for the organizations, you know, because the relation that Marjan was he took for the organization is such one that there are very many ties among the organizations, but he could define another type of relationship among the organizations. So one thing is that in our research policy of our agency, it is prescribed. So you have to have, if you apply for research, you have to have also some researchers in the projects from another organization, you know, and usually this is more or less artificially, you know, you really do not work with those guys, but it is required that you have to have, because the research policy is such that they want to force us to begin to collaborate with different organizations, right? So they do force us, but as we see, the result is not really the one that they expected, because it is obvious that this doesn't result with writing papers together. So it's unfortunately, but maybe long term this will work, so that finally we will begin to collaborate. Well, my group is doing that, so we do write papers with people from other organizations, but that's not really a common thing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That is very interesting. So, dear colleagues, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank Marjan on behalf of everyone, all of us here, because it's actually a lot of fun when we can have our colleagues from our partner universities or elsewhere join us. So thank you, Marjan, very much for presenting your research. Hopefully this was motivating for our people to use block modeling more. I would say that the growth of block modeling teaching has grown quite a bit at HSU, and I would teach block modeling in all of our networks courses because it's so intuitive and it gives you so much insight. But it's very interesting to see yet more applications of this tool. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation. Maybe I can say that we just published a paper together with Miha Matjasic and Aleš Žiberna, which is a kind of manual for using block modeling care package for block modeling. And we will probably organize also a workshop in Naples at this conference, so you're welcome to apply if you're interested in how to do
that would be awesome. I mean, if you can share the reference for that article, I would love to see it, and I'm sure that our younger colleagues in the lab would benefit greatly from attending this workshop in Naples.
I'm not sure if it is online already. I will check it now. I have these secrets here.
Okay, thank you.
In which journal it will appear?
It is Metodološki zvezki. No, I think it's not yet.
You know, this R package is done by Aleš Žiberna, and it is, which is interesting, is that it can work for valued block modeling for valued networks, and also all these things that Aleš.
That's good. Yeah.
His colleagues are working on these multi-level and connected networks and so on. So it's quite a nice result. Yeah.
That's excellent.
I will send you the link to the paper when it's published.
Okay.
Now maybe I can show you the link to the package description in chat. At least for
excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I also ask a question, Valentina? Do we still have some time?
Yeah, sure. You can.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Arina is in charge. I'm just a listener here.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, Marjan. I really like the idea of multi-level block modeling, and all these visualizations are very new for me. And I was wondering about this research group number 4, because I can clearly see that it lies on the overlap of these two circles. So these researchers seem to be well affiliated with both groups of organizations, probably with both faculties. So my question is, if you change this coarseness of block modeling, if you will choose other two options, will you see more such overlapping groups appearing? And I was also wondering, do you think it makes sense to allow actors to belong to several blocks when you try to find the block modeling solutions?
Okay, the first answer would be that if you increase the number of clusters, you would have more such examples of linked. Can you see this?
Yes.
This is an example. You see, there are many of them. I mean, many more of them that are linked to each other. While for the second question, I would not know. I mean, I should. First, I don't know if there is an approach for block modeling with overlapping clusters, but nevertheless, it is how to say substantive question whether this makes sense or not. And yeah, but probably it would make yes.
I also don't know about, here it is assumed that you're looking for a partition. It can be hierarchy, but each time, in each level, there is a partition. And so this is the assumption here. And I don't know an approach for overlapping block modeling for overlapping clusters. Vlado, do you know? I don't know. Because here,
how to say, it's I think it's totally legal and natural that you allow also overlapping clusters, but I don't know any theory behind this. But I recently analyzed that Southern Women network, and if you look to the original Davis solution, it has there two women that essentially appear in both clusters. So already he noticed, or he with his collaborators, he noticed that this possibility of overlapping clusters. So it's the problem is that I don't know any reference to some study that uses this, but it's a totally interesting question. Yes.
I know that your colleague, or your former student, Yuri Leskovet, he developed an approach to find overlapping clusters with an assumption that the overlapping part is much more denser than the non-overlapping parts. So the groups, they present some different social circles which intersect and create this overlapping, densely overlapped parts.
Yeah, maybe also Peixoto did something in this direction, but I think I remember some paper dealing with overlapping, but I didn't study that.
And I also thank you for your answers and recommendations. I also wanted to ask Marjan about the first project which he presented. I had also a question about the number of groups. How did you select the number of groups to find using block modeling in this connected component of the graph? As I saw, the number of actors per core was quite low. It was around 4 or 5. So I was wondering if you tried different numbers of groups and how you, how did you pre-specify it? Was it some kind of confirmatory block modeling approach where you already knew the number of cores?
So what we did was that we, for each time period separately, we calculated the corrected Euclidean distances between these researchers. This corrected Euclidean distance is consistent with structural equivalency. And then based on these distances, we created dendrograms by using, I think, word clustering approach. And then based on these dendrograms, we selected the number of clusters. For some scientific disciplines, we tried with different number of clusters, but we tend to be as much as possible consistent when deciding on the number of clusters for each scientific discipline and time period. So this was to some extent subjective.
Thank you. Because I remember I tried to also use the same approach for network of students in high school. And I was trying to find small groups of around 4 or from 4 to 7 students. And I realized that if I will cut dendrogram on a certain level, there would be some large groups appearing, which is not realistic that all the students are very close friends to each other. So I was trying to also cut dendrogram at different levels to allow these groups to be smaller. And I found the results quite interesting because there can be this bridging cores which are connected to other cores and to some periphery groups. But
actually, we did the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we used, as you, prior knowledge on that networks, and we take this into account.
Yeah, I think that this general rule, you have a this dendrogram and you cut at certain level, is how to say, is quite a general rule, but it is not always the right one. Because you have to consider whether the space of units is somehow homogeneous or not. And it can happen that in different parts of the space, so-called local density is quite different. And in this case, this rule doesn't hold.
Yeah.
And so you have to then to go to the dendrogram and select the right cutting points, let's say manually or in some other way.
And it's interesting that if you want to do this, I realized that you can only use PyEC for it, because in our package block modeling, it's not possible to cut it on different levels. But I also like using PyEC, so it helped me with it.
Well, PyEC is very good, perfectly done for block modeling. Actually, for the pre-specified block modeling is Andrei Mrva really did an excellent job, I think.
And can you, is it okay to call pre-specified block modeling confirmatory block modeling? Are these
in a way?
synonymous
Yeah,
terms?
yeah, in a way. There is no statistical test or something like that, but you use the prior knowledge, you know, and this is something that that is the definition of the confirmatory analysis, right? Yeah, I would use it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And my last question to Marjan is about comparing adjusted indices, the modified adjusted trend index, between different disciplines. I was wondering if it's better to use non-adjusted indices to compare, because when you have different networks, the adjustment score can differ, and it's I found it hard also to compare the indices between different networks.
Yeah, in a non-adjusted version, the number of units, the number of clusters in the first and in the second time period or partition affect the value. And if you would have like two random and independent partitions, like like here, you could get like the value of 0.5. And if you would increase the number of clusters, you would get different value, which would be far away from 0. So in that sense, it is very advisable or necessary to use the modified version. Otherwise, you can interpret the if you would have rand index, not modified rand index. If you would have rand index, you could interpret it as a percentage of different pairs of units that are placed in the same cluster in the first, or in the same clusters in the first and second partition, or in different clusters in the first and second partitions, over all possible types of units. You could interpret this as a percentage, but this non-adjusted value, but you should correct this for chance that you, even if you have random and independent partitions, you get this percentage quite high. So my answer is you should have adjusted versions.
And it's okay to compare different networks.
This actually makes them comparable, yes.
Okay, thanks.
In the chat, you have a question from Delio.
The places methodology. I'm not familiar with this. Can you, is it possible for you to say a little bit more about places methodology? Or maybe.
Yes, sorry, it was more, so first, thank you for your presentation. It's just, this comment is about the question about Stefan, to use a methodology to mix with overlapping groups, if I well understand. So maybe this methodology of the study of structural equivalence in bipartite or affiliation network can be used when you have different overlapping groups. It's just it's not a question for you, it's a question as a comment, and maybe a possibility for the comment of Stefan.
Thank you for this comment.
Okay, colleagues, do you have any more comments, questions?
I also have a question, a follow-up. What are your future plans? Do you want to continue working on multi-level?
Actually, yeah, we applied for the project in which we want to compare and evaluate different approaches to block modeling linked and temporal networks. And within this project, I will try to further develop our approaches which were developed within my PhD for generating networks by considering different local network mechanisms, by generating networks with considering this, but in such a way that they have pre-specified block model structure and that they are temporal. And we will use such generated networks to compare different approaches to analyzing such type of networks. And then we will actually select one of such approach and apply it on the core-to-chip networks, and we will simultaneously block model the networks obtained at different time points, not separately as we did in our study, but together at once. So we will consider possible constraints between different between the links from different time points.
Sounds very interesting. Looking forward to See it.
Thank you. I will present results in a couple of years when we finish.
We will be waiting.
Let's hope for the European conference.
Yep. So thank you very much, Marjan, for your interesting presentation and impressive results. Thank you all our guests who came to our seminar. So good evening, everybody. We will meet next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.